The fuck are you doing here?
I just appear every few months.
Ugh.
Wild Gavin appeared.
Remind me to stock up on anti-Gavin spray next time, okay?
Yeah.
Helps if you have those liquid bait things, the strips that you put down in the corner of your doors. That gets me better.
Oh, you leave out some traps. You gotta bait them with some Hot Pockets and ketchup.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while, but Gavin's back, and we're going to be talking about a movie that I want to say this is one of the least wanted movies of the summer for me personally.
For you?
For me personally.
Okay.
For me personally, I never liked the Jason Bourne series. I
Really?
never did.
You know, it looked like they didn't like it very much either, and probably didn't want this to happen either.
Some of the actors in the movie did seem like, excuse me, some of the actors did seem like they were just, kind of here out of obligation, but that's kind of jumping ahead. But right now, my initial feelings before the movie were just that I never liked the movie series at all. I could see why it's popular, but I just know that they were not made for me.
Do you want to take them through a quick history of the Bourne franchise?
Why don't you go ahead?
Actually, I was just going to say, you're the one who boned up on it.
That's true.
Yeah.
The previous week, prior to this weekend, we had planned that I would be up here for Siege versus, and I had only seen Identity several times. Once with
Yes,
riff
we
tracks.
planned for it.
One with tracks, which of course made it better. But so I went through Supremacy through Legacy on my way up here, and boning up on the history of the franchise, I realized that Jason Bourne is the second time in this franchise where it was an unnecessary reboot, completely and honestly, and pretty much forthright in everyone involved. Legacy was made because Universal was about to lose the rights, a la Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2, and Jason Bourne. My fear going into this movie was that the Bourne franchise was going to become Matt Damon's Die Hard. So much like pretty much everyone involved in the Die Hard series readily admits to, these are when Bruce Willis realizes how much his career sucks. So every half decade we have to string him up on like Weekend at Bernie style and pretend he's still relevant as a movie star.
Or that he's actually acting.
Or that he is capable of expressing human emotion. Yeah.
Remember, we have a bias here.
We honestly
he doesn't like Bruce Willis.
I seriously do not, no. But in terms of Bourne, these movies, after Ultimatum, not only did everyone involved not really want it to make it exist, it sort of outlived its functionality. Bourne Identity came out in 2002, and its success, at least in the United States, in the post-9/11 world, was James Bond rough and tumble. This was James Bond getting dirty. He was going hand-to-hand combat. The camera was all over the place. And so Identity was 2002. Supremacy was 2004. Ultimatum, which everyone involved pretty much hated, was 2007. After that, James Bond came and became James Bond Rough and Tumble with Casino Royale, pretty much negating the entirety of this movie series ever continuing after that point. And if you listen to, up until 2012, I think was Matt Damon's last interview on the subject until Bourne came out, he and Paul Greengrass had some pretty stiff things to say about Ultimatum. Particularly single out Tony Gilroy, who apparently, according to them, had a contract where he only needed to turn in a first rough draft to the Ultimatum script, which if you watch the movie, it doesn't sound like they even really did an edit beyond that point. So Legacy at that point was made, holy shit, Matt Damon's never going to come back, we ruined him, we need to keep this license. And now we have Jason Bourne coming back because this was made before Martian and Matt Damon thought he needed a career boost. I honestly can't tell you
This
the
was
reason
made
for this
before
movie.
Martian.
No, this probably was filming not before the Martian came out. Before Matt Damon had a little career bump. Reasonably so. The Martian was good. He was great in it. But yeah, beyond that, I can't really construe a series of events that would make Jason Bourne as a production necessary.
Yeah, I'm of the same mind with you. Like even though my history with the Bourne franchise never went further beyond what was the second one?
Supremacy.
After Supremacy, I was just like done. I don't need this. Spy flicks. I've never managed to garner my imagination, and that's probably where my disconnect with Captain America is. Because Captain America
went full spy with Winter Soldier. Yeah.
With Winter Soldier and with the next
Civil War.
Civil War.
But Hydra will get you back into it.
You know, when you put an over-the-moon evil corporation, bring back Spectre into the...
Oh, dear.
No, I mean...
Well, the point of... The charm of James Bond films have always been, like, a charismatic agent, lone agent, against what seems to be a global force, and this global force is beyond all reproach evil. Then there's, then you still have that drama of, like the intrigue of spyness with all the camp fun that, good versus evil, high drama can correlate. But with Jason Bourne, it's always the bad side has always been construed as, well, morally compromised. And then all of a sudden, like, spy fiction becomes, like, it's painting the pictures using broad strokes, saying, like, they're morally compromised, therefore they're evil. But they're evil for good reasons, and now there's no fun in that anymore.
It's less spy thriller, more conspiracy, especially with this latest one. Jason Bourne felt like... It basically felt like all of the emails that your stupid uncle sends you, forwards you from his email chain about how social media networks are really a front for government agencies. That's quite literally the plot of the second and third act of this movie.
Yeah.
Or at least attempting to be.
But
yeah, I mean, they could have made this whole movie about, they're using Pokemon Go.
That'll be the next one.
Steer.
Bourne Go.
all right.
Yeah.
Actually, dovetailing off of that comment, this movie made me realize I am sick to goddamn death of Facebook analogs being plot points in movies. Please, for the love of God, I want to put a moratorium on anything that's supposed to be like cloud networking or Life Invader or anything like that. Just
And even these ones, which are like Fool, which they're
Like,
kind
you
of
have to take animal
encapsulating.
attacks
Yeah.
before you take another one of these Facebook
They're taking the entirety of Silicon Valley and making it into one homogenous corporation.
yeah, look, I thought
Which
it was
is not. It's three.
I thought it was I thought Terminator Genesis was at its nadir.
I did not see that.
That's the big thing. That's the big twist of it.
That's my my wall of good life decisions. Never seen Terminator Genesis.
Yeah, I thought it was that in Terminator Genesis, but at least in Terminator Genesis, it was like supposed to be the apocalypse, so therefore it felt like it had a place in its plot. This felt so extraneous, especially since like that plot rail just kind of seemed to run parallel to what's happening with Jason Bourne, and then all of a sudden it just kind of converged going two different speeds, but it's still a train wreck the way it wound up being. So
why don't we take the nice people into the movie proper?
Well,
I don't know. It was a really, really slow train wreck.
It was a slow train wreck, which means it's not even a good train wreck to watch. But yeah, let's see. The movie, I want to say it starts off with just Jason Bourne just bare knuckle fighting because that's all he does. That's all he can do, being a super soldier that just is a citizen without person without a country.
He is on the run, off the grid, and all the other buzzwords
and then
40-year-old conspiracy writers.
And then Julia Stiles just kind of hacks the Pentagon for seemingly no reason.
That's been her role, her raison d'etre in this franchise since Identity. She just kind of shows up and does a thing, which is a real shame because you've had Julia Stiles, who is a fantastic actress, for 15 years, and you've done practically nothing with her, and it's such a shame.
Yeah,
she is so beyond these movies. She is too good for this.
I would say that if she, you say she's a good actress, but she's terrible in this.
She is.
Oh man, she was reading right off the cue cards.
She was.
It was terrible.
I can't fault that against her though.
Pronunciation was
listening to what she had to say, I really can't fault her.
Yeah. One of the more key aspects of this film that I find endemic through all the Jason Bourne movies, but especially this one, is that when your movie is built with half the time with shots of people looking intently at computer screens or at files, that makes for one of the most disengaging and just mind-numbing video experiences.
I was so sleepy during this whole movie.
Most of the time. If you want to see a superb movie about people that are looking at computer screens for the most of it, watch Eye in the Sky, that was released earlier this year, with Helen Mirren and one of Alan Rickman's final roles. It is spectacular. All about drone warfare. It's possible. It's difficult. And Paul Greengrass did not manage it for most of the Bourne franchise, and definitely not here.
Speaking of Paul Greengrass, Do you feel that he was trying to... Yeah, Paul Greengrass, Mr. I'm on my 10th coffee. Here, give me the camera. Do you feel like the lighting in this film, especially, the lighting in this film, he wanted to be Fincher?
He wanted to be what?
Fincher. David Fincher. Like, he saw The Social Network, and he said, like, I can make a movie that looks like that. Especially
in certain scenes, yes.
In certain scenes, especially in the beginning of the film, where...
Who's the DP?
I
will look it up, you continue.
Yeah, but... well, ultimately, it was up to Greengrass. I mean, not only did he produce it and direct it,
you're relying a bit on the auteur theory.
Yeah, but like as I said, like it seems like Greengrass has a lot of creative control over this movie.
Naturally.
So, for
he and Damon are producing and doing all that fun stuff.
But as I was saying, like it felt like he was trying to be a David Fincher movie by the way the scenes were lit, especially like a lot of golds and blacks, and. It doesn't help that, more blacks than gold, so not only can you not see the frame very clearly most of the time, it's also jittering around.
Oh, this makes sense. Cinematographer is Barry Ackroyd, who also did The Big Short, and Captain Phillips, particularly. This is very reminiscent of Captain Phillips in terms of its propensity for close, shaky shots.
Yeah, like, I never wanted to be that familiar with Matt Damon's unthinking, unfeeling face, especially in Profile. You could count how many hair follicles are on that man's chin just by watching this movie.
Watching this movie in 4K HD.
Oh, God forbid 5K. You could see into his soul. That camera's so close. But
I will go back on you when it comes to Damon being emotionless. I do think he can carry a movie with as little dialogue as he had here. They said he has 25 lines. He has a little bit more than that. But overall, I think he's one I could sit through a movie just kind of him dealing with shit.
Yeah, him dealing with shit is fine, but unfortunately, in this movie, he is not.
And when things get in motion, he is.
Yeah,
but there is far too much where he's staring at computer screens or figuring shit out.
There's so much of people just walking, driving, following. It's just, the conversations are so low-key and so slow and drawn out that it's almost like a hypnosis video.
This is one of the franchises that seems to be Ouroboros-ing.
I almost fell asleep during the movie.
This follows very intently the Bourne formula of on-foot surveillance scene leading into car and or motorcycle chase, leading into espionage and thriller, leading into second car chase, leading into hand-on-hand for once in the movie, and final car chase. Before final bloody hand-to-hand.
Like if Robert Kopp, God, it's... Yeah, if Robert Kopp, you call it Bob Kopp. I call it Robert Kopp. If Robert Kopp had, no scenes, no action scenes except for like at the very end. I mean, actually, that's kind of accurate.
Yeah, it was kind of accurate. Outside of that gunfight in the dark
scene that they have to use to replicate.
And the gunfight in the dark. Yeah. But either way,
but it was almost a Robert Kopp level of boring.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, Robert Kopp was dumber than...
No, he was stupid. It was completely stupid. I mean, at least there was a feasible plot in this. There was intrigue, kind of. It was just kind of... It really was not very complex. It was very dumbed down.
Speaking of dumbed down, this... I can tell you why I hate people looking at computer screens.
Because, why do you hate people looking at computer screens?
I hate people looking intently at computer screens because it invariably follows one message. They're looking at computer programs
in cinema.
In cinema. Yeah. People are looking at computer screens because they're trying to trace something, they're trying to find something out.
And always with the more visual GUI than ever in any CIA internal software.
So
we're just waiting for you to do that so that we can move on.
And the problem, and then they end up, all the dialogue surrounding those scenes tends to be telling you what's happening on screen while it's happening on screen. Yeah, like Bourne is going to turn left. Bourne turns left. Bourne's going to turn left again.
This is the freaking GPS shit. It's like they're going to follow him, they're going to track him, he's going to go a place, they're going to go a place, he's going to move to a new place, they're going to follow to a new place. And this is just the whole movie almost towards the end.
Yeah.
I will say for the first surveillance scene, I did like that when we got towards Greece. So, Bourne finds...
the Athena statue scene, that was better. I thought that was kind of boring, and then the rest of the movie happens, so I guess the...
So Nikki shows up in Reykjavik, hacks the CIA program, seemingly just to set off the plot for no particular reason. And so they are discovered, malware is put onto the files that she uploaded so that then the CIA can track her later. She blows up the computer very dramatically.
Very pissy, too.
Yeah, just kind of like flings some vodka and lights it on fire, which A, don't think would work, and B, why? Anyway, she leaves, they meet up in Greece, and shit goes down, they're being tracked, CA is following them. Eventually, they kind of dovetail into this public square where there is a protest / riot on the in progress, and they're using that for cover. And these are the kind of scenes I actually liked the Bourne franchise for, especially earlier films, because that will show how Bourne can improvise. And that was the one thing I liked about Bourne, especially in Identity, where he was like, hey, look, there's a book. I'm going to ram it into your Adam's apple and crush your larynx.
More action scenes. Better action scenes.
And here
More
he's
followable actions.
Yes.
And here he's walking, and basically the first 15 minutes of this movie was, how many times can Bourne find and use a Molotov someone else had already lit? Because he'll grab one, smack it down behind him to create a firewall, so they can literal firewall, so that they can escape, and that kind of stuff I like. I like seeing adaptability. I like seeing an agent thinking on his feet. This is something that's somewhat quasi unique to the Bourne franchise. It just wasn't as focused as in Identity and Supremacy, where he would take like a pen and stab it in someone's eye, like really use fun items in unique ways. Here it was just like, oh, look, there's a thing. I shall use this thing. I'm going to progress and get onto a motorbike now.
Yeah, but going on that the riot, I like the film's ability to actually have a lot of movement, human movement on screen. Because we've all seen, like, especially blockbuster action films, where like something's happening in a public place, but for some reason it's never as full of people as it should be. Like,
budget.
Yeah,
right, and they'll often move in singular patterns, like in one direction or two very prominent directions.
Yeah.
Here, there's a lot of cross movement going on in the background, foreground, and even midground.
Like, and you're always used to the background of the extras not saying anything because you think that's too much of a budget. But then when you start to not have anybody there, it starts to get kind of like, what the hell? This is a busy city, isn't it?
I do like in the riot scene where Bourne came into contact with the police and was handing them to unconsciousness. Some of the crowd were cheering him on. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, but all of this, all the while they're being pursued by the police, who are somehow the most organized police possible, considering the
in a riot state.
In a riot state.
In a declared state of emergency.
In a declared state of emergency, they managed to break away. They managed to get aggro and say like, "Hey, they stole a police motorcycle. Right. Let's start following them." Between all of that,
that's not how you really respond in a riot situation.
Yeah, but I get it. You need to have enemies. Besides the fact that they have, I want to say, Peruvian Clive Owen after them.
Vincent Cassel.
Vincent Cassel.
He's a Frenchman.
I believe that he's an actor who you see in various spots, kind of like a character actor.
He's a solid ensemble performer.
Not really a character
and I did like
actor
him in this
movie.
movie.
He just doesn't have very many roles, but when he does, they're usually pretty deep, solid roles.
Yeah.
Like I think
here he didn't have much to work
with. Wolf.
I think it was.
Pretty sure he was in Brother of the Wolf, which is these two. I don't think like that movie at all, but I love the movie. I mean, I haven't seen it in a while. We'll see how.
In any case,
but in any case, he's a great actor.
And here he worked with what he had, which admittedly wasn't much. He was the ruminating person out for personal vengeance against Bourne, who was eventually out to be personally vengeanced onto Vincent Cassel. Wait, no, okay, fine.
Well, I would say like Vince, not knowing the man's name, I look at Vincent Cassel and said, well, at least he's distinctive looking, and there is an effort. And there is an effort in him that is sorely missed in every single other actor and actress that has the unfortunate predicament of acting in this movie, and
which is such a shame because these movies have been tent poles for actors that have gone places. Baby Clive Owen was in here. Baby Carl Urban was in here. Baby Oscar Isaacs was in Bourne Ultimatum. Just tons of really good people that would eventually go on, and I guess Alicia Vikander, who is playing the Joan Allen role in previous movies of the disenfranchised CIA operative that eventually helps Bourne, although she's a bit more dubious than Joan Allen. She was pretty decent, but again, it seemed like there was a gap between actor ability and working script.
Working script and just general, like, let's just get this over with. I think, spoiler, but I think Julia Stiles had it in her writer saying, like, write me out of this film.
I know.
Immediately.
That's the point. That brings us right back into the plot progression here, because right after Grease, Vincent Cassel shoots and kills Julia Stiles' Nikki, who was my favorite character in the entire franchise, and that kind of killed the movie's momentum for me. Just because they had seeded, especially in Ultimatum, this idea that she was his psychotherapist in part of the program. That was her initial role in, I believe it was Blackbriar or Threshold, or the original program in which Bourne volunteered, David Webb volunteered and became Jason Bourne. She was with him, and there was a bit of a relationship to develop that then he subsequently forgot when he got the convenient amnesia before Identity. And they had seeded that. They had begun to work through that relationship in Ultimatum, and like pretty much everything prior to the beginning of Ultimatum, they dropped. And Julia Stiles, that initial curious kind of possibly interesting romantic subplot is killed with her here, and that was the only through line I was looking forward to actually seeing them express.
This movie was very also had no romance in it, like a lot of the other ones did.
Yeah, well, especially since Franca Patant, who is great, One Little Run as well. They have a tendency to kill off romantic love interests in this movie, like
this one
movies I haven't seen in 20 years. Yeah. Like they will cap anyone close to Jason Bourne in the first 15 minutes like nothing. Like they're his Disney parents.
Honestly, they need. I think these movies need a romantic interest to give Matt Damon something to fight for and stuff.
That's why you have the Bond girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this one didn't have it. And
on one hand,
I mean, it's like this many movies in, a new girl every time really just starts to seem really kind of like, well, how really invested are you? Every single fucking movie, there's
that's why you had Julia Stiles, and then you just up and killed her.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like I expect them trying not to go for that trope. But on the other hand, if your movie's going to be lesser for it, then you don't have something else to replace it with.
I mean, the idea was that he found a new motivation by trying to find out who killed his father.
He just didn't seem very motivated by his acting.
Yeah, again, everyone's pretty much on autopilot in this movie, but no one was more enjoyably on autopilot than our main man,
yes.
Tommy Lee Jones. That man knows how to put "don't give a fuck, why the fuck am I in this movie" more than any other actor working today. I can't even come up with a second place. He's so far ahead of.
And Tommy Lee is coming into the Chris Cooper / I forget, Scott Glenn / David Strathairn role, where he is the really evil CIA director that has all the control over the CIA programs. This is the big bad that looms over everything.
Yeah, and every single line that's out of his mouth is always delivered in that same Tommy Lee Jones style of like, well, I guess I gotta say this line now. Gotta say this line. Yeah, sure, whatever. Move. Done. Out. I feel like, I don't know how they managed to get Tommy Lee Jones to be on screen. I feel like, if he had his druthers, he would just have, like, a little speaker system right there. And he was just, like, like Charlie's It from Charlie's Angels. It just, yeah.
He is enjoyable, though. Man. This movie was lesser. It would be lesser without him.
Yeah, I mean, the line read of the movie just comes from his mouth when the up-and-comer CIA operative just...
Alicia Vikander.
Yes.
He has a proposition.
Vikander, who has had a good career up until now, and now it's just kind of a lateral move here.
Yeah,
that's this entire movie in a nutshell, in one phrase. Lateral move.
I would think this is a shovel pass backwards.
That would be Legacy.
Yeah.
I think that I liked Legacy more than this.
Whoa.
Oh, no, Legacy is a fumble. Legacy is a fumble.
I think I like this movie more than you do. And I would definitely put it above Legacy. I may even put it in most of Identity.
But I don't know.
Most of Supremacy.
Like, this was just... I'm going to say at this point because it's fresh. I'm just going to say that Legacy and this are kind of just on par with how pointless they were, and trying to argue over which one was worse or better just seems pointless at this point.
Yeah, but
it's as pointless as those two movies.
Yeah, but Vikander, brings up the notion because she just conveniently read in another scene where she's looking intently at a computer screen about some bullshit psych profile on Jason Bourne that just says, well, he has patriotism in his heart. He's John Cena, right? He never gives up.
Hustle, loyal integrity.
Loyal integrity. So we can invite him back in the program, and she drops it on them, saying like, well, instead of trying to kill him, why don't we try to bring him back into the program? Because even though he hasn't killed hundreds of our own operatives to kill him, we're going to gloss all that over for one.
I love that the guy is telling him, Tommy Jones is telling him, 32 killed, and each one of them made a difference. And then they go on this car chase where they kill probably a dozen people at least.
Yeah.
Well, most of those were on Castle.
It's like, good job, you almost duplicated your entire kill.
Yeah. But the main discovery of this movie was that Jason Bourne was not so much volunteered out of his own free will. He was scouted. His father wasn't in operations. He kind of led the program that would eventually become Blackbriar. And then he was killed by the CIA because he didn't have the balls to do it their way. That's the main discovery, and we learned that by watching other people read it on cameras, or on laptop screens and cell phone stories.
Yeah, it's entirely disengaging. But when she brings up that point, and the orange-haired guy, I guess he's supposed to be someone who is...
He's a deputy that's second in command to Tommy Lee Jones, I believe.
Speaking of what we were just saying about the reading it from laptop screens and everything.
Yes.
There were a lot of USB scenes in this where you needed like a special computer to use a special USB.
A lot of this is Jason Bourne running from one place to plug a thing into a thing.
Yeah,
and
but it had to be like,
to go to another place to plug a thing into a thing.
It had to be like that computer or that USB in order for them to like work together, I think.
Yeah, like that was the entire
compatibility.
Scene. Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking, that'd be a great, really funny scene if like he puts it in there and it's like, oh shit, it's not compatible. Fucking Apple.
No, like he went to Munich to get to, de-encrypt the information because apparently that guy had powerful enough software to de-encrypt CIA encrypted files. That was that scene. Right. But, so the deputy just says, you know what, sure, why not? And Tommy Lee Jones, he asked Tommy Lee Jones, say like, well, what do you think about this plan of capturing him instead of killing him? Tommy Lee Jones just goes, sure.
He just says, we'll give it a shot.
We'll give it a shot.
Pretty much. It was one of the close to that exact delivery there.
It's one of the most half-assed, fed-up lines I've ever heard, and I was just about to, I was about to hit some Z's there, and that line just it brought me back because it was so fucking hilarious.
I don't want to just coming off of this movie, my big thing was I can't believe they killed Julia Stiles, my favorite character, blah 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 blah. But in the right back here, setting up and talking through it, I think I've come across one of my core complaints of this movie is that Jason Bourne got dumb over the course of these movies. I don't know if gaining back his memories, which at some point he needs to have gained back all his memories.
Himself, not the movies.
Yeah. Jason Bourne has gotten dumber.
Gotcha.
Because in each of these subsequent movies, he is standing in open view of giant windows more. He doesn't understand that that people that he has at gunpoint and are speaking weird probably have plugs in the ears where they're getting instructions from the CIA. He has to find that out in the latter portion of the movie. I'm like, I get that you have amnesia still somehow for this specific thing, but you're also a trained agent that is instinctually capable, and yet you're missing these rookie moves here.
Maybe he's burned out.
And it just seems like he's making too many moves or making too many mistakes in benefit of the script or progressing the plot forward. And I think losing that capability that was Bourne's chief draw for most of the opening act of the first couple movies, I'm not left with a lot to root for here.
I think he wants to be killed.
I think so. Are we talking about Matt Damon or Jason Bourne?
Both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Jason Bourne might have gotten dumber, but everyone else around Jason Bourne got even dumber.
Yeah, I guess getting rid of Joan Allen's character made everybody at the CIA just dense as all get out.
Yeah,
I miss her. She seemed to actually have her shit together.
Yeah. Besides the fact that seems that if they have Jason Bourne on file and they know for a fact we tried to capture it 3 different fucking times and no
he
fucking
always gets through immigration.
He always seems to get through immigration. Why is it a surprise to you?
We always get that revelatory scene where one of the CIA guys that are meant to be there specifically to react to things that Tommy Lee Jones doesn't want to do. There'll be a moment where a beat and the music will stop and someone in the room will go, "Holy shit, that's Jason Bourne." Were you not briefed? Are you not aware of the situation overall? Is the CIA just dropping in people? I realize that they're often coming into overall surveillance situations and then customizing it to their specific operation. Standard procedure in CIA movie logic. But you have to understand that at this point, Jason Bourne has to have a pretty staunch reputation within the CIA overall. And everybody here is excited excited and surprised when he punches out someone in 3 hits. It's like this guy has to reinstate his reputation every 15 minutes with the CIA.
It is you, the hero of Kabach.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's also weirdly like erratic how effective he really is at hand-to-hand combat. Knocked out this jack dude in one punch to the jaw.
It was very Protector-esque, if you remember that martial arts flick that we watched a few years back.
It just seems like the effectiveness of his hand-to-hand combat is complete.
Jason Bourne OP.
Like Jason Bourne starts of the film OP and then can't even like hold his own. Go
with
to
Vincent Castle.
Yeah, Vincent Castle. Yeah,
a dude 1/3 the size of the people he was punching out. One hit KO.
No, that's the actor.
Wait a minute.
One hit KO in Greece.
Oh shit! I got the actors mixed up.
Yeah, okay.
That's embarrassing. Oh well.
What actor?
Yeah, I got the actors mixed up.
Okay.
Clive Owen and Vincent Castle.
Yeah.
Names, not faces.
Mm-hmm. But I wanted to say this movie has no way of. Its way of ratcheting up drama is 1, stare intently at computer screens. 2, have Jason Bourne, they realize that he's so OP that they have to cheap shot him in order. It's wrestling logic almost. Mm-hmm. It's like you have to cheap shot him in order for him to actually, stagger a little bit. Then all of a sudden, he's not on his A game. But it never takes him long to okay, beat him down. A hacker. A guy who just spends all his time reading laptop screens manages to get the drop on Jason Bourne by cracking him over the skull with a weight, with a barbell, still loses. And he loses bad.
And they can still film hand-to-hand fights well. That's what annoys me about it.
Well, depending on what your definition of well is. I mean, the fights look intense, but they don't look followable. A lot of whip pans, a lot of
true, but in this world of American style filming of hand-to-hand battles, Western style, where it's not martial arts training, everyone knows how to do it, and they're not in Jackie Chan one shot. I always liked Greengrass and Bourne's way of doing it because it does most of what Bourne does seems to be this kind of slipshod, improvisational. I use what's around me to kill, and that kind of followed through with this whip pan and everything like that. It seems like. The camera, like Bourne, is frantically searching and taking advantage of everything. That works for me, but I recognize that I have a much higher tolerance for that kind of cinematography and editing than most people. My favorite movie is still Moulin Rouge.
Oh, why did you have to say that?
Why did you have to?
That's another thing. Whip pan cinematography and whip fast editing.
And fast editing, but at least you know what's going on in the frame.
True.
I mean, at least the cinematography in Moulin Rouge is well structured enough that even if you only see a frame for about maybe half a second, you know what that frame. A quarter of a second, you know what's on that frame.
Or there's a lot of blur.
Or there's a lot of blur, but at least you have that shape. Whereas in Paul Greengrass, when he does that kind of whip pan, quick editing, shot, bam, there's 2 subjects in frame, so the eye can't exactly instinctively know where to focus on in the frame. Whereas, again, with Moulin Rouge, 1 subject in the frame, so that way...
Most of the time.
Yeah, eye knows exactly where to go. Here, you don't know where's the point of focus in the frame. And by the time you could try to figure it out, you're already 3 or 4 edits away from that particular shot.
I think we're going to be coming across a lot of this in the post-Mad Max Fury Road era of action movies. Yeah. After a movie so well center-framed and so beautifully put together... Everything, especially coming back from an old, aged franchise like Bourne, is going to look like a dinosaur. And this really does look like a creaking in the joints, the sciatica in the back, just kind of really putting all the effort to get out of a chair kind of franchise at this point.
The beauty part of Mad Max Fury Road was the fact that it knew when shots had to look frantic and had to look oh my god, Max is trying to get away from the war boys, and oh my god, there's, there was a great use of adjusting the shutter speed of the camera so that way it looks like, even though the frame rate is still at 24 frames per second,
it looks super speed. Yeah,
it looks super speed, even though they're just looking at regular frame rate. They're going at regular speed. Yeah. But not only did he knew how to affect the action on the camera, he knew where to put the focus on the camera, but he also knew when to slow things down.
Right.
Like car being launched up in the air and war boards are going flying. Yeah. You want to see that in slow motion.
Glorious.
No such knowledge or even want to slow things down. And you can make the argument that makes it feel more, frantic, and you can make the argument that it's more white knuckle that way, but you can't You can, and
I'm not making the argument that it's more coherent, which I think is your stopping point, which is completely legitimate.
I'm not even arguing against coherency. I'm arguing for the fact that, like, some people thought that Mad Max was just like a single car chase. And they couldn't be more further than the point.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they couldn't be further from the. This, on the other hand, feels like one single car chase just spread over the entirety of the world. In terms of, like, it's always one speed, fast, and as fast as you can go. The moment where I said, like, this feels energized and this feels frantic and energized, but it doesn't make a good movie. It was. At the end, in the third act, which is arguably the best part of the movie.
Oh, I think we all agree on that.
Yeah. When Castle hijacks a police truck, and it's like he has a cow catcher in front of it.
Which is weird. Yeah, that was when he went through all those cars, just a couple dozen parked cars on a busy Vegas intersection, goes right through them. I'm like, I know that's a SWAT vehicle. That SWAT vehicle does not have a cow catcher on it.
Yeah.
I know for a fact this shit won't fly. Literally, these cars wouldn't be flying right now.
Like, yeah, and he doesn't even slow down. But they couldn't even leave, like, all right, I can forgive the physics of that scene. Because that's a cool thing to see. You want to see a police truck just go, and then cars go flying. But they couldn't leave well enough alone. I know that there was a highly involved, highly choreographed stunt to pull off. Why do we have to see this from 55 different camera angles? And we couldn't even enjoy one part of it.
That's the reason why a lot of martial arts films will show the same stunt, start to finish, 3 different times in a row. Well, the action will in fact restart from a different angle, and you'd see it again, and it will restart from a different angle and see it again. That's a bit overwrought, but that's kind of what the audience wants to see. If it's well done enough, if it's fantastic enough, we would forgive the time distortion in order to see it from all the glorious angles possible.
Yeah,
Here, we get that first part, but not at a comfortable speed, or not at a reasonable, or maybe too itemized, too convoluted.
Yeah, like, it always felt like he was going through that car in real time. There was no point where, like, the first initial impact, and then you see that initial impact again at a different speed, and while that's not exactly true to cinematic language, it might be true to, say, like, sports replays.
Right.
But at the exact same time, the only reason why you're doing this and why you're making the audience bend logic to suit what they're trying to see is because they want to see this. They want to see something fictional. So why not let them see what's so fictional in more ways and let them appreciate what they're seeing? There's no shot of, like, a car just, flying through the air.
There's no ballet to this. It's all jabs. It's all pliés. There's no rhythm almost.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like where this movie utterly failed is that its cinematic tone tried to be as realistic as possible. That's the one argument people have for why the shaky cam. It feels real. It feels like you're right there. And it feels so...
In essence,
yeah. And yet they do this unbelievable dumbass bullshit. Say, like, well, if you're trying to be gritty and realistic, that fucking...
Cop cow catcher.
There's no cow catcher on that fucking truck. He would have been stopped dead.
I mean, it was a SWAT car, SWAT truck. But even a SWAT truck wouldn't be able to do that.
That's going against suspension of disbelief, especially for the Bourne series.
So if you're trying to reinforce our disbelief by trying to have be there in the moment, like you're right up there against Jason Bourne and I forgot the character's name. I think it was called the Asset.
He was Asset. I could look it
up.
He was referred to as Asset most of the time, but we've been calling him Vincent Castle since the beginning.
Yeah. So
and I've been calling him Clive Owens.
That's because of me. But
you fool.
Like the real apex of the film is this down and out dirty brawl in a grimy sewer tunnel. And that's a fight that needed to be especially how it was all ramping up to this. That was a fight that needed to be quick shots, and that I can understand the reason for that. It feels like these men are going to kill themselves one way or another. One man's going to die, or maybe they're both going to die.
They even say that at the beginning, at one point in the movie.
Yeah, one man's going to die, or
this movie telegraphs its moves way too early and way too frequently. Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah,
I don't want to be told what happens 3 microseconds before it happens.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a fight you need to see it, but. You can believe that since they're not going to be throwing fucking flash kicks or
there's not going to be any spinning jump kicks.
There's not going to be any
no flips, just fists.
Flips, there's fists. Just
I like that.
Yeah, that's. that's appropriately shot, and because there's only two people in a nondescript area, you could forgive the fact that you're not getting as much information in the fight. Because that's your brain is processing the situation as fast as the characters are.
Right. It becomes the mood play that the rest of the movie wanted to be.
But yeah, so for that scene, yeah, that kind of editing and that kind of cinematography is appropriate. For something like a grand car chase through the streets of Las Vegas,
you need better coverage.
You do.
You need longer shots and you need wider shots.
And unfortunately, that's where most of this movie is. It's always like a motorcycle chase through Greece. It's a car chase through Las Vegas.
I didn't mind the motorcycle chase too much. Once he got on the motorbike and it was just the chase with him and the asset, I thought that was done well enough. And the fact that we're never going to get the ideal Steve McQueen motorcycle chase in my head ever again.
Yeah, I mean, like...
Speaking of... Steve McQueen would have made a great chase in Bourne.
At this point, we were talking so much about the chase scenes.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing there really is to talk about.
There's not much of a substance once you get down to the talking.
I just want to, bring it back to what my initial point was in the beginning, that there really is not very much of it. Most of the movie, the vast majority of the movie, really is just boring, walking around, looking at screens.
It's surveillance, yeah.
It's surveillance.
All we're talking about right now is basically just the end.
The end and a few sprinklings of scenes earlier on in the film.
Yeah.
So. And the movie attempts to crowbar the same debate that we've been having in Post-Snowden. They even say this could be worse than Snowden. No, it's not. But in any case, it's the... can we accept privacy in a terrorist-laden world? What is more important, privacy or herd security? And they pay lip service to that idea, but there is really no argument being made on either side for this.
No,
it's just kind of dropped in there to give the rest of the movie a semblance of weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a big old glob of tofu lumped into a hot pot of soup just because you need something in there, otherwise you just have broth.
And what drove me the most up the wall about this movie was the fact that every time you try to get invested, which you can't because the visual direction is just so erratic that if you try to get invested, you're just going to wind up with a headache. So my mental faculty for that is just disengage. Don't even try.
Fall asleep.
Yeah.
In this case.
Yeah. But every time it would cut back to the leader of the Facebook analogy, who was apparently trying
called Deep Dream, which sounds like a Kingdom Hearts game.
Mm-hmm. They were trying to assuage...
Deep dreams I was having.
Yeah, we don't even know what this Facebook wannabe thing is supposed to be, other than it
felt more like Google, but they were talking like it was a social network, which would mean Facebook, MySpace, Friendster.
Yeah, it was they talked about
it. Like I said, it was an amalgamation of Silicon Valley into one organization.
Yeah, they talked about it in such nebulous terms so as to not really give it an identity, other than people use it, and for some reason they need their personal identity for it. Right. And then they were trying, and then
it's a social network that runs on metadata as currency.
So it would cut to this guy, giving a keynote speech saying we want to assuage you all, and saying that you will never be your data is secure and is not.
Once you use Deep Dream, you are not being watched.
But it turns out
that's even if you didn't have the CIA snooping, that is impossible in any kind of modern business at all, let alone social media.
Yeah.
And just take my word for it.
Yeah.
Just take my word.
Although, that's another disappointment, because we had another performer here that was really working it, which was, I think it's Riz Ahmed, who was playing Bill Jobs, Zuckerberg Gates. And he was actually pretty good. I really got a sense of his conflict growing over the course of the movie. And again, we come to a point where we have all these great ensemble, or in some cases leading performers, that try up to a point, and you can tell at some point in the production they gave up. With Alicia Vikander, it's her earlier scene. She really got into it towards the later part of the movie. Riz Ahmed was probably the strongest throughout, and he was really eating those crumbs.
Yeah,
I believed he was eating those crumbs, but they were still crumbs.
The problem in this movie is the fact that he has an arc.
He does.
He has an arc. He has
the arc of the movie.
He has the arc of the movie, and he has 10% of the movie.
Yeah, 100% of the arc, 10% of of the screen time.
I feel like this movie could have been about him. It could have been a complete spin-off or something. It would have been weird.
It would have been infinitely more interesting.
It would have been infinitely more interesting that, when Tommy Lee Jones for some reason, decided to act, especially opposite to him.
Right, and they had one of those classic meeting in the cafe to discuss rather openly their motivations and just plot at each other.
When both sides are making valid points, valid points where you're saying like we can't betray our customers. So you're going to betray America. You're going to give the potential terrorists the ability to communicate with each other without endanger everyone. Like, you've done this before. Mm-hmm. You've helped us out before. They've established that there was already
that was seed money. Yeah. Which now he had that was one of the tip of Ahmed's arc was he was starting to give a speech about how he made a deal with a man in a black coat and stole his soul. Then he got shot by Vincent Castle, and we just proceeded with the rest of the less interesting main movie.
Yeah, and I like that felt like a movie that if we have to have the Facebook movie, even after we had the Facebook movie, that's what that should be about. Like,
if with what the movie wanted to debate in terms of topic, that was the movie that it needed to be. Mm-hmm. But it was obvious that was just lumped in there.
Yeah,
it needed that was its attempt to stay relevant after the Bourne arc had been shut pretty well with Ultimatum. Mm. And despite Greengrass's and Damon's reticence over that movie, or their reluctance to embrace that movie post-release, I can see why for the script side, it still is the strongest to watch overall in the series. I don't know if I miss Tony Gilroy or not, because obviously they weren't going to have him back, but I think I liked his scripts better, forgiving the first draft Ultimatum, better than what Greengrass and consorts came up with for this. Cohorts came up with this. Jason Bourne. Yeah, which I believe deviates from Robert Ludlum's existing plots, if I'm not mistaken.
I wouldn't blame them for doing it. I mean, considering that Game of Thrones is coming up on its last season, since they kind of ran out of source material.
It's the whole DBZ thing.
Yeah. At a certain point, you just kind of have to cut your losses. Yeah. But again, I keep coming back to what was the point of this movie? The point of this movie was basically to resuscitate a franchise.
For what point? Just money, right?
Yeah, money, right. And I don't blame a studio for wanting money, but
especially Universal.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame a studio for wanting to make money, but I do blame a studio if you want to make money, try to make a movie where it's fun. Don't try to be smart about it because you just wind up being
dull.
Not even dull and insulting, and rather and you just make me feel like I wasted my goddamn time. Especially considering that even though that ending, that third act needed to be reshot and re-edited to actually let us enjoy the spectacle.
I even think that using their existing footage, a better edit of that final act is possible.
Yeah, entirely. Well, depending on
edit it. I'm going to look up the editor. You keep going.
But yeah, I suppose that if we did take the raw footage, we could feasibly make a better movie. The story beats would still be, off its rocker.
I say, why bother? I mean, really.
Yeah.
Why bother? You only have this little bit to work with. Most of that movie was just filler. Like you said, tofu broth. It's just...
This and all the other Bourne movies was edited by a man by the name of Christopher Rouse, who also did Captain Phillips. So again... This talent is capable of producing good work in the same kind of cinematic vein, where you're doing close-up shaky and everything like that. But for some reason, the Bourne formula has clicked less and less as we get more and more installments.
Well, that's not exactly, the first time that's ever happened with a series. So
true. Which is, it is bizarre, because the Bourne movies were almost the 1-2 sequels that I like to call, like the Pirates movies and the Matrix movies, where your initial film, meant to be as a standalone, was a big enough success where the studio says, you know what, we're not only going to greenlight one sequel for you, we're going to give you 2, and you're going to make them both in very quick succession. Bourne was not quite that, because there was enough of a gap between Supremacy and Ultimatum, but with Legacy and Bourne, it feels like one of those strained franchises, like Pirates, just in a different genre and in a completely different style. It feels like it lost its raison d'etre 5-10 years ago.
I don't know. I think you boning up on all of the Bourne supremacy is the Bourne
Bourne movies,
the Bourne
the Bourne,
the identity, the supremacy, the ultimatums, etc. I think that you having to bone up on that is kind of just a good parallel. Like, that is the problem with this movie, is the fact that you have so many of them before this. You have to go back and watch them all
which
to
I really
remember
didn't.
why this movie is even relevant.
Which I really didn't, because this movie has been going back in concentric circles upon itself ever since Supremacy.
Yeah,
Even so much
like,
that Supremacy and Ultimatum were happening at the same time
Yeah.
in continuity. But it feels like they have a formula beat by beat, structured since Identity, and they have not deviated significantly at all. Like, they will progress from exposition to fight scene, to surveillance scene, to on-foot running scene, onto a car chase scene, and it seems like we've done this same flow again and again and again since 2002.
Well, it also stems from the problem that, from a plot perspective, Jason Bourne's only real motivation, beyond any love interest and beyond any kind of revenge, is just to find out what the heck happened to him.
Right, and at this point, it really should be all revealed. If the last movie you're in, he says, I remember everything.
It turns out, no, you don't.
No,
This
you
is like
don't.
if you. This is like if Seven was not perfectly exactly like, but this is like if Seven was a series and the last installment was just him trying to figure out what's in the box for the entire movie.
I would love to watch.
Typing into like computers, like okay, the box.
I'd love to watch 2 hours and 15 minutes of Brad Pitt just going, "What's in the box?" to various people across Pittsburgh, across not Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Like, no, if Brad Pitt and Kevin Spacey, like, what's in the box, and Kevin Spacey just. Why don't you take a look? No, you gotta tell me what's in the box. No, you go ahead.
This isn't the right box, is it?
He opens it and it's another box.
Yep.
Now what's in this box? I don't know.
Oscars, all the Oscars, throw it on their feet. Brilliance.
He opens that box. It's Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman coughs up another box.
It was never in a box, was it?
We're all in the box.
Pans out as a gigantic box.
Yep.
Picture, if you will.
I think we just went into Monty Python headspace right there.
Monty Python cross Twilight Zone, which sounds like a glorious thing.
And I think that's a perfect note for us to have our closing thoughts on this movie. I wanted to like this movie more. I hate
Me too.
I hate movies where you can see a good movie trying to get out of a bad movie, and this is very much the case for it. Story-wise, I think this franchise is dead, and I don't believe that there's any future for this series whatsoever. But people want to see Jason Bourne take a pot and beat up assassins with it. So
I would love to see that. I wish that was in that movie.
I wish that was in the movie. Yeah.
Oh well, he did grab a pot and.
Oh, he like deflected it or he disarmed.
I'm sorry.
his
I guess
gun
I didn't
with
see
it.
that. It was too fast.
Yeah.
He disarmed him with it, but
Oh, but either way, but the point remains that
I'm
this
gonna
is.
kill you with a teacup.
The point remains, though, that this movie franchise is dead on its axles, and I can't imagine that there's much of future for this series at all. So, do I recommend you go see it? Like, even if you like Jason Bourne movies, no, not at all. It just feels like we're retreading the same old ground over and over again. I mean, but like, even if you wanted to see, like, no, I still really want to see all this. Saying, well, rent the DVD and skip like 2/3 of this movie.
Yeah.
If you just want to see the action scenes, just see the action scenes. Yeah. It is so not worth everything else to lead up to it. Anyone?
Watch the trailer. Just watch the trailer.
You killed off any reason for this movie to exist with Julia Stiles. But beyond that, I watched most of these movies on DVD, and I will agree with Bennett's assessment here that that's pretty much the best way to watch it. This series has never gone above an 8 on the classic 10-point scale. And especially with this one, it's been treading water, which is odd because this movie opened with a unconscious Bourne treading water. But that's basically what their franchise is, and it's apparently made pretty good money, the best for the franchise, so they're going to get a sequel. But honestly, I can't recommend anything from this franchise beyond the first trilogy, and even then it's with the caveat of watching it at home, at your leisure, and fast-forwarding to your favorite bits.
Anything, right?
Don't watch it. It's boring. It's still better than my high school reunion.
I had fun at the high school reunion.
I had fun at Weird Al.
Yeah, and you had
I
lots
saw
of
Weird Al
fun
too.
after
That's the recommendation that we come away from this.
Yeah.
Don't go see Jason Bourne. Go see Weird Al.
Go see Weird Al.
Come on.
Go see Weird Al. It's a much better show. Much better show. All right. Till next time.